Okay, so today we're going to start off making a sweet corn and kumara soup. Sweet corn is one of those things that's really good to use as much as possible when it's in season. So it has such a great fresh taste to it and a lot of nutrition benefit too. So I'm going to start off just by sauteing a little celery and carrot in a pot. So we'll just chop up some celery quickly. It'll just be roughly chopped. Whenever you're chopping things like this, it's always a good one to keep the fingers sort of curled under with the fingernails pointing inwards. That way you won't ever chop any of the fingernails off. Everyone has these accidents chopping in the kitchen. All it takes is the right technique and you'll never have any worries. A couple of carrots, just chop the ends off there. I'll actually save the ends for making a vegetable stock later on. So just chop these in half and then the same thing, roughly chopped. Into our pot, a bit of grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil is quite a good one for cooking as it holds the heat quite well and it's a natural source of vitamin E. A little bit of asafoetida powder. And straight in with the celery and carrot. Got a bit of a mix. Just turn the heat slightly down on that, so it's about a medium to high heat. Whenever you're sauteing at the start of a soup, it's a good idea to have it so the temperature's not too high, so they're not really sizzling and starting to brown the bottom, but you just want to be gently sauteing to bring out the flavours. And along with this, we're going to put 2 tablespoons of ground paprika in. Paprika is really good for, one, adding some colour to a dish. It also adds a nice richness and flavour and also a little sweetness to a dish, being sweet paprika. So we'll just cook that out a little bit. A minute or so. And we'll add 4 cups of water. Followed by another 2 cups, so we've got 6 cups in total there. We'll take our kumara. In New Zealand we call this kumara. Overseas, if you're watching there, you probably just know it as regular sweet potato. It's fine to use with the skin on, but only just peel off any bad pieces of skin that don't look very nice. Here I've got a mixture of mostly gold kumara, also a little purple. Just take off any pieces that don't look so good. It's not too much difference between the gold and the purple, however the gold does tend to break up a little more. So these can just be roughly chopped straight into the pot, which we can turn up onto high heat now. Got a total of 4 sweet potatoes in here. Little stir. It looks like we've got enough for there. So next, our sweet corn. 2 I've got here already, and 1. To show you when peeling sweet corn, it's always good just to chop the initial top piece off and simply just peeling the husk down. Thing with sweet corn, when you're peeling it and using it as a dish with the corn loose, you just need to make sure you get all the corn fibres off. Otherwise sometimes it can resemble a hair in the food, which no one likes to see. Just making sure that you've taken them off completely. Dispose of the husk there and any remnants. Just cutting the tail off there also. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the corn off. So when you're cutting it off to use it in a dish, always just place the corn flat. Sometimes you see people having it up like this, but if you have it like that, then the corn's going to go everywhere and it's a lot more difficult to cut as well. So cut it as closely as you can to the cob, because you don't want to leave much behind at all. The cobs we're going to use, a lot of flavour still left in here, so you just pop these inside the pot into the soup. And we're just going to use that to give the soup some more flavour, and when they're cooked, we'll remove them before we puree that part of the soup. Another one in. And the last one. So let's give those a bit of a stir, get them into the water. And just pop a lid on top of this just to bring it to the boil. The corn we'll just put in a bowl and keep that aside until the end. So first we're going to cook the soup, we'll puree it, and we'll add the corn in at the end to give it that nice sort of crunchy corn still inside the soup. So let's put our corn aside for now. Whilst we're waiting for the soup to cook, we will get our herbs ready. So in my opinion, there's one secret to good food, good cooking, and that's fresh herbs. One of my favourite parts of food. So many great herbs you can use, and they're so easy to grow. All these have come from the garden this morning. So I'll just quickly show you some different herb varieties what we have here. So this first one we have is rosemary. Rosemary is a fantastic herb. Any of these herbs that I've got here you can pretty much use universally in any sort of Mediterranean cooking. Rosemary you have to be careful with because it is quite strong. We've also got thyme. Thyme also has quite a strong flavour, although the leaves are very small, so it takes quite a lot of work picking the thyme. We've got some basil. Basil has great flavour, everyone knows basil, excellent with tomatoes. The basil's not so good for actually cooking, it's more good raw, or if you're going to use it in cooking you only add it at the very end, otherwise the colour will go brown and the taste slightly bitter. This, one of my favourite herbs, this is marjoram. Marjoram has a beautiful sweet aromatic flavour. Great in pastas, gnocchi, anything really. We've got oregano, similar to marjoram, but the flavour is not quite as sweet. Sage, also a really strong flavour. Sage goes great with pumpkin. Anything along the lines of that. It also adds a certain richness and depth to a dish. And we have parsley. We've got two types of parsley. We've got the curly leaf and the flat type. The flavours are very similar, and both you can use universally for either dish. So for this soup, basically we're going to use a mixture of all these herbs except for the basil. So a little rosemary, a little thyme, a little parsley, a little oregano, a little marjoram, and a little sage. So we're just going to chop it up together to make a mixed herb. Whenever you're using fresh herbs, you only want to add them at the end of the dish, basically. As soon as you add the herbs into the cooking, the flavour goes into the food, but if you leave it there cooking too long, the flavour will go out of the food just as quick as it came in. So you only add them right at the very end. So we'll take some parsley, sage, pick those leaves off, put some oregano, some marjoram, rosemary, thyme. If your thyme is very young and quite bushy, you can get away with using the stalk as well. You can chop everything up. But in this case, the stalk is quite a large portion of the branch as opposed to the leaves, so we'll just pick the leaves off there quickly. And the thing when using herbs, not only are you getting great flavour, but many of them have medicinal purpose as well. And to extract that medicinal value of a herb, it has to basically reach a high enough temperature that the oils of the herbs can be released into the food. But it's a fine line of releasing them too long and losing the flavour. For example, rosemary is extremely good for the kidneys. Sage, I believe, is good for the liver. We'll take a little more marjoram. Most of the time the herbs are very straightforward to pick. You just simply take a hold at the top of the herb, run the fingers down the stem, stripping the leaves, and then just tip the top off. Okay, so that'll do for this dish. So in chopping herbs, the easiest way to do it is to squeeze them all as tight as you can into a bunch. You have that same technique with your fingers. You want to hold the herbs down as tight as you can, but keep the fingers curled under, and then just simply chop away. Once your first chop is done, you just gather them all together again, and then you can just place one hand on top of the edge of the knife. Just run it back and forward over them. Just pop those aside in the bowl there. So we'll be adding those herbs at the very end. In the meantime, also to give a little colour with the corn, we're going to use a little red capsicum and 1 tomato. Just take the core out of the tomato. And here, for presentation reasons, if you make the tomato more or less the size of the corn kernels, that is what's going to give us the best effect. Capsicum, same thing, I'll just remove a bit of that pith. Similar size to the corn kernel, about 1/2 centimetre. Just put these aside in a separate bowl. Also, whilst we've got the herbs here, we'll chop a little bit of parsley. I'll take a mixture of the straight leaf and the curly leaf. A little bit of chopped parsley is always quite nice on top of a soup. So we're done with these now, I'll pop those back in the fridge. If you don't have a herb garden at home or any herbs growing, I definitely recommend to plant some. Most of them grow without any care at all. And it just adds such amazing freshness and flavour to your food. And if it's fresh from your garden, you can go down to the supermarket and pick them up, but you're going to pay about $2 or $3 for a small bunch that's so easy to grow. Even if you're in an apartment, you can still grow herbs in pots on the windowsill, taking very little space. The amount of effort, minimal effort that you put in, you get so much out of them. Let's chop that parsley up there. And put that in there. Meanwhile, back at the stove, we can see our soup's come to the boil now, so we'll remove the lid so it's able to reduce down slightly. Depending on what you're doing when you're cooking, it's always good to use the lid to bring something to the boil because you save the energy basically because it's going to come to the boil quicker. But if you are wanting the liquid to reduce down, then the lid needs to come off, otherwise you're keeping all the moisture inside. That's coming along nicely. The important thing to remember when cooking is you don't have to worry too much about recipes. Although we're giving you recipes here and showing you how to do things, recipes are only guidelines, and if you don't have a certain ingredient in your cupboard or in the fridge, don't worry too much. Always you can improvise and experiment. Everything that I do when I make, I generally never use a recipe. I always just see what's in the fridge, what's in the garden, what looks good in the market, and just throw things together in that sense. Most things that you'll see me making here, nothing's been actually pre-planned. It's just, you know, what we feel like making on the day. What looked good, what's in season. It's really good to always use what you have grown locally. Food's been sitting in an aeroplane or it's had to travel halfway across the world. Chances are it's been sprayed with something that's going to help it preserve and to look good, look new and fresh, even though it's been picked 2 weeks ago or something. So it's always important to use as fresh ingredients as you can, and our bodies go in line with what Mother Nature is giving us in season at the time. So always try to use as much as you can what's in season. So we'll let this cook down for about a further 5 to 10 minutes before we remove the corn, and we'll be pureeing this and adding our other ingredients in. So give it a little sprinkle of sea salt, a little cracked pepper, so our soup's cooked down nicely here. Basically once the kumara and the carrot's cooked, it's pretty much good to go. That should take anywhere between half an hour and 40 minutes. So now we remove the corn cobs. So you can see they're nicely cooked there and all that flavour is gone from the cob now into our soup. Making sure nothing's left behind on it. And from here we'll puree the soup. If you've got a stick blender, you can just do it on the stove top like this. If you don't have, you can always just pour parts of the soup into a blender. And if you don't even have that, you can always just use a masher or a muley and mash the soup down. tend to add the fresh herbs just at the end of pureeing the soup, just so the additional hit with the blade of the blender will also help to release the herbs, and from that point we pretty much will remove it from the heat. So in go our herbs. So I've taken it off the heat now. As you can see, we've got a nice sort of creamy, thick texture there, nice and smooth. So in goes our corn. You'll find that the heat that's left in the soups tend to hold their heat quite well. The heat left in there is going to cook the corn lightly, but so you're still left with the texture of a bit of bite in the corn, a bit of firmness to it. Also put our diced tomato and capsicum or red pepper in there. Give that a bit of a stir. You can adjust the consistency to your liking, depending whether you like your soup thick, leave it as it is. If you like it a little thinner, you just add a little more hot water to it. Always a good idea just to have a little taste. Just check the seasoning of the soup, see if it needs a little more salt or pepper. Touch more pepper. A little salt. And I think we're good to go with our soup. Just give that one last stir. When you're using the ladle, it's a nice little trick just to drag the back of the ladle against the pot, and hopefully you remove any of the drips that might land on the side of your plate. It's always nice to keep the edge of the plate looking clean. And we'll put a little bit of our chopped parsley sprinkled on top. There we go, it's good to serve. Coumaran sweet corn soup. Nice warming dish for those cooler autumn days. Enjoy.